So, welcome back, Malcolm. And, in recap, the last time you and I were speaking, we talked about the fact that you were in the recovery. This was after, some surgeries and you had some pressure taken off of your head. And you realized that you wanted to have a change in your life. You wanted to change who you were, what you were experiencing, and get back to the light. Now, I understand that you recognize that. Now I want to talk about what you have talked to me before. You've used the word surrender. And I mentioned to you that surrendering was a concept that it really took me a while to understand what it meant.
Mm,
And the reason for that, I think, is the dogma of the definition of surrender. You've got to give something up, right?
mm.
Surrender says you're giving something up. And sometimes we give up a lot in our lives that we really don't want to give up. And so I think for me, anyway, surrendering had a negativity associated to it.
Yeah, it
So,
did. Had uncomfortability for me.
yeah. So let's talk about what surrender really is and what it means. And so, where I want you to start off with is you realized you needed to make a change. What was that like when you started to do it? And how does that fit into your message of surrendering?
So when I realized that I was having these realizations, I started to notice a lot of the fake and the fraudulence around me and inside of me, my thoughts and my feelings, and what was real and true. So surrendering to the old self meant all of the false beliefs, whether it was something I was holding on to, a feeling, a thought, an emotion, um, things that people told me, said to me, I started to question everything. Everything that I thought was real or true or a lie, I started to doubt. I started to really take a step back and try to question everything without having my inner thoughts and my ego come in the way. It was difficult, man. Like it was hard. It's hard to even sit here and try to go back and come up with an authentic answer, because I'm coming from my perspective of today. But I you got to be specific when you ask me questions. It can't be broad. You have
Okay.
to
Let,
pinpoint an
let,
area in the past, like
sure. Let me define it a little bit better for you
yes,
then so it can help you. Um, so you knew you needed to have a different mindset. You wanted to think differently. You wanted to behave differently. Was the motivation, let me step back a little bit. Was the motivation in you wanting to make a change, was that motivation because of your near death experience? Was that the motive? Was that where the motivation was coming from?
that's a good question. I guess it woke me up and it shook my life around and it made me realize that death and life is not all there is, and it's truth and not being authentic. And what was authentic when everything in my life was fraudulence and fake and lies and burdens um and yeah, I want to say yes, it did motivate me, but it was more of the struggling and the battling and fighting through my demons fighting through my own aggressions, my own pain and suffering, my own insecurities, my own confidence, my own lack of. So it was almost a testament. I was trying and airing everything in my life. So the way I was not changed yet. I was just more of an observer, a noticer, but I was still the same person. So like my anger, my frustration, my lies, my insecurity, the the abuse, the way I judged. So when those things happen, it was like almost do it to the fullest. I wasn't fixing it in the moment. I was doing it to the fullest. I almost went down the deep end. Like I would attract destruction, like the destroyer of life. They say, what is the destroyer of life, right? There's so many in so many ancient cultures, right? I was destroying myself and the life around me. Like it was messed up. I was destroying my family dynamic, my children's dynamic, my spouse's feelings, emotions, mine, our relationship, even my interactions with police officers, with with everybody. It's like I had to judge and crucify and condemn, but I was doing it all wrong. And I didn't realize it until I destroyed the life that I had in reality. And then I would go, mm-hmm.
You're so let me paraphrase for a minute. So as you were going through your day to day and you recognized patterns in yourself, whether they were patterns that you were perceiving from other people around you as far as what was irritating you, or things that was happening internalized, you were paying attention to those things. You weren't stopping them, you were allowing them to happen, but you were like, you know what? That's something that I don't like.
But
So
it
that's
was
what,
like not, it was something that I recognized, but I didn't know how to be a new self. So I didn't know how to address it the right way. I didn't know how to be calm, remain calm. I didn't know how to sit in that patience, sit in that pain. I didn't know that there was a better outcome until I destroyed it. When I destroyed it and completely demolished it, like I'm talking my spouse leaving me with my child, me becoming aggressive and abusive, me physically hitting her, like the police coming and handcuffing me and me fighting with the officers and them throwing me in the back of the plane, going to jail, having scars on my face and like lotion. And I had a lot of scars and stuff, and I was putting treatment, and I still had the cream stuck thick on place on my skin. And I was like in my muscle shirt, and I couldn't even put on an underwear. I didn't shower. I didn't brush my teeth. And here I am getting taken to jail, and I'm a clean freak. I'm like, I got to brush. I got to look good. I got to make sure I do my hour shower. I brush, like I do everything. I change, I freshen up. But that was my ego. It's like, I'm so messed up. And then yet I'm thinking how to make myself feel fresh. So I'm like, surrendering to that. So surrendering was like surrendering into the destroying of my life and being okay with it. Like I knew consciously I was destructing. I was destroying my life around me, man. And it was like I knew what I was doing, but something inside me is just like, I guess that's what I'm going to make you do. Because I had no will to stop it and I had no control to stop it. So I just surrendered. So my way of surrendering that time, it's crazy that I was self-guided. I was being guided, but not aware that something else was leading me and guiding me. Like my spirit was literally doing it for me. And it was helping me out after my car accident. With me being just oblivious to it. But then after realizing, wow, thank you. Like I needed that. So why I teach it differently now, where people don't have to go through the pain and suffering and go through jail time and go through that abuse, and that is what my coaching is now. So they don't have to do all the things that I had to go through, that I had to put myself in, so then I can teach it and guide it better. So surrendering for me was that, literally just a destruction of my life, an unfolding of my roller coaster, and enduring the pain, in the midst of the pain, being in the pain, living it, and just being at peace with it.
That's great. I'm glad you said that. You know, I'm going to for me, when we started talking and you wanted to help me out with some things, um, what I realize now is that the surrendering that I went through, I would like to say, instead of using the word surrender, probably the better way to describe it is discovery. You know, it's to discover what we truly are, and how, and I don't really like to use the word, but I'm going to use the word because it fits, you know, how fraudulent we can be with the truth to ourselves. It's not so much, I can say that it's not so much how dishonest I might be or fraudulent I might be to someone else, because I'm probably, or I felt or feel that, genuinely speaking, I'm pretty honest with someone, unless I feel like I have to protect them, which is a form of fraudulence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So surrendering for me was kind of discovery, and it sounds like surrendering for you was also discovery. So let's talk about surrendering in the sense of not discovery, surrendering in the sense of having to give something up.
Mm-hmm.
And let me give you an example, and the example I'll use myself. Um, so relationships
Mm-hmm.
is one of the things that I realized in my past was my great fraudulence, because the relationships that I had always had was built around the emphasis of how do I look to that individual.
Mm-hmm.
It's how I perceived I was being received.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality of the destruction that was going on was whose point of view, or whose interest was I putting out there first? I was putting myself. So for me to truly surrender, I realized, well, I can't put myself first, and I need to put the other person first. And so I need to surrender my own interests and my own needs, if you will, to allow that other person the opportunity to tell me what their needs are and to tell me what their interests are.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go through that same type of thing? What did you have to surrender? I mean, literally let go, to where you know it made a fundamental personality change, a fundamental core change in how you treated people and thought about other people.
There was phases and levels. So after destroying the relationship, was another level of coming back together, uh, trying a new way, a new method, and working on all of the different things that I noticed the fraudulence in me, and working through it. So I had to surrender to my tonality, um, my looks, the way I spoke, love languages, understanding what I was lacking, understanding judgment, what she was lacking, what she needed, but then also what I needed and what she lacked in seeing and viewing. So it was like viewing and uncovering and perspectives. It's not always just a two-way street. It's like a just because you think that somebody needs something so you can receive something is not always the solution. So if you surrender to your spouse so they can feel good to give you what you want, that's not always the solution, because that's surface level. They are still not changed and changing something inside of them. Like, if, for example, if you feel jealous or insecure, it's not just up to you to fix your jealousy and insecurity so then you could be in a better relationship. It's also, what causes the jealousy and insecurity, right? Like, what are the traits in that person, and where are they willing to meet you halfway or 100% to compromise? So I almost sacrificed the relationship again. I said, I'm given an ultimatum. I'm changing this. You change this as well and beyond. I'm going to this counseling, you go to this counseling. I'm doing that. It was like a battle. It was not like it was an ultimate, it wasn't a battle. It was like a compromise. It was no ifs, ands, or buts. You have to both be willing to change. So if I was willing to walk away and leave it up to God and say, I'm going to destroy this, and if it's meant to be, it, whatever is going to come, it's going to come. So when it came, it doesn't mean that it's fixed. It means that what are you going to put into it now? How are you going to use the tools and put the puzzles together even better? And it's always a working progress, right? It's always like things that you got to do. You got to swallow your pride, your ego. You have to always make yourself feel uncomfortable to be renewed. So ask your question again, and define it again so then I can be clear.
Sure, no problem. Um, so let's go back to the beginning of surrendering, right? When you tell your clients,
Mhm.
I want you to surrender, you need to surrender, you need to let it go. From the most simplest point of view, what is it that you're asking them to let go of? What is it that you're referencing when you say that?
Okay. So I'm referencing to their belief, their beliefs, their feelings, their thoughts, their emotions. But then when they do it in the beginning, I'm just getting them to recognize that they have that. And that's what I'm getting them to surrender to. And then as I continue, then I say, hey, it's okay to question me. It's okay now. Then I'm giving the permission, right? So when I get, because in the beginning, I don't want to give the permission, right? I want them not to have that. That enables ego and pride and judgments, right? So I'm eliminating the permission. So they have to surrender to that. It's almost like they're sacrificing in that moment that they can't walk into this like that, because they're not going to heal, they're not going to recover, because I'm not saying that this has nothing to do with me. It's more of a energy thing. It's more of an energy thing. It's like you can't go to a counselor with prejudgments. You can't go to a gym self-conscious. the whole time. You have to let it go. You have to surrender and do the work, right? Without feeling that I can't do it. You're never going to get the job done if you have doubts in your mind, right? So
Right.
when I say surrender, you have to let go of those doubts and those feelings and lack. And if it comes up later, if there's no solution, then there's no solution. But there will be, because you've sacrificed in the beginning, right? You've done that, you've surrendered. It's just a subconscious thing. It's not like I'm teaching them surrendering on the first day. I just have to say it to their subconscious, to this their soul. I say it, speak it to them. And I'm not talking their body or mind. I'm looking into their spirit, right? I'm saying, I go like this. I'm like, I ask of everybody, just can you surrender? Like, one thing I ask is surrender, let go of your ego. And I'm looking at you, right? Your pride, just to see like how you are, how you perceive it, you know? And so there's no weight. There's no weight in the way. The energy, the blocks, the walls don't have to be there. So it allows people to be at harmony and ease and relax. That's all it is. It's very superficial when I first say in the beginning, but then when we dive deep into the teachings of what surrender is, and all the steps have everything to do with, acceptance, admittance, surrendering, finding your purpose, fulfillment, and, letting go. It all ties together. You can't have one without the other.
Right.
You
Right.
cannot attain, you cannot gain anything out of life if you're not willing to sacrifice,
Gotcha.
right? Yeah.
Gotcha. So I'm going to paraphrase again. You had the accident. You didn't like who you were sensing you were. You went through a destructive phase when you were, coming out of the rehabilitation. You fought the system, you fought yourself, but all during that fighting of the system and fighting of yourself, you discovered your ego. You found your ego, and
Yeah.
you realized you had that ego, and then you started to change that ego. And so what you do with me, and what you're saying, I do know you do it with me. So I'm assuming you do it with your clients now. Is that instead of going on the path of destruction, um, you ask us to really look inwardly and to face our fraudulence. And so surrendering, when you use the term surrendering, and what surrendering means to you today is the other way you say it, I believe, is be comfortable with being uncomfortable. It is seeing yourself for who you truly are, what's good, what's bad, whatever, finding the fraudulent person, understanding what that fraudulence is so that you can address it, and address it in a kinder, shorter way than going on the path of destruction.
Sometimes people won't recognize it. It's easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I wish it was like that, where you discover your ego and you start to put in the work and you find out what to do. But sometimes cycles repeat itself and patterns repeat itself to challenge your ego again and again and again, and it'll like repeat, and people will start to feel defeated, and they will start to like these tests in life are going to come. When you're on this journey, you have to let go of everything else. It's not just you start here, you notice and you figure out the ego, and then you move forward, because then another cycle comes and repeats itself. Every other moon comes, stars align, and then what happens then in 3 years, and then 5 years, and then 10 years, and it's like, oh shoot, something big is happening. Like, I didn't do the deep work. I thought I did, but it was just on the top. So that's what the message shouldn't be. It's like that. If someone is ready, right, really willing to change their life, yes, you can do it like you just said, but I'm talking now about deeper. If someone is really broken, right, it's deeper than just than noticing some things that are egotistical in you, and pride or judgments. It's deeper. There's some traits in even my own partner that she doesn't even recognize in herself right now. There's some things in her that she probably does that she doesn't even want to admit to and surrender to, you know, because she's focusing on so many other things in her life. It's deeper than where you think you're going or how great you think you are already or how much you think you've done. Even me, I'm not saying I'm far from. There's things in me that still I have to go deeper, like way deeper, to heal, to fix. It's ongoing. It's ongoing, right? You got to just keep doing it. We've been on this life for so long, I mean, our souls, no matter what, I feel like we'll never be able to live a spiritual life unless we get into those phases of third, like once you connect all your chakras and you see people, they're getting into that that stage of life where they can freeze themselves in time and be monk-like and mummify themselves in real time. That's the point of enlightenment. And that's the point I feel people can still be physical but spiritual at the same time. So the work is never ending until then, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's wrap this up. And the way that I would like this to be wrapped up, um, when you ask a brand new client,
Mm-hmm.
you need to surrender. Can you repeat what you're saying now as to what you mean to them that they will need to surrender? What is it that you're asking someone to do when you say you need to surrender, right?
Okay.
Tell me what it is you're after when you say that.
I'm trying to get them to understand that regardless of what they feel or believe or think is right or wrong, or what their approach is or their narrative or whatever they think of me, or however they're coming into this with their own feelings and emotions and what they're going to say and not say, or block or not block, or people have something inside of them. They know what they're doing. So when I say surrender, just enter the unknowing willingly, you know, uncharted territory, but willingly, and just allow the process to happen. And that's what you got to do. And when people do that, then they can start to receive and attract and notice things and be the observer and be the student of life that they need to be. Other than that, they are just being fraud and fake, and it's hard for them to open up their conscious mind.
Can you recall? I mean, are you able to recall? Now we're going to go backwards again, real quick. You were fighting the system. You were going through the frustrations of the system and the relationships that you were in and that kind of a thing. When was it, or what happened? How did you sense that you knew you needed to surrender? There had to be something that I'm not talking about, the lights came on or whatever. I'm just saying, what finally set into you after, pushing back? What happened? What was the trigger that said, you know what, I need to surrender all that?
Yeah. Bless you. Seeing the patterns, bless you, as patterns. Seeing everything for what it is. So if I was walking down the street having a thought, that was a pattern and a cycle. If I was entering a state of mind, going down into the kitchen to talk to my partner, that was a pattern. If I was to brush my teeth a certain way, that was a pattern. If I were to look in my eyes, that was a pattern. If I were to, everything I started to notice as a pattern, as a cycle. And in order for it to become renewed and refreshed, I had to break the pattern. And to break the pattern, I had to just not have a feeling or a thought of, oh, is this a pattern? Is that not a pattern? I just said, no, this is a pattern. I don't care. Like, that's it. I just didn't let my mind think at all. So if it had to be destroyed, it was just had to be destroyed. If I had to be fixed, it just had to be fixed. If I, and then afterwards, I had to, then when I was starting from fresh, ground zero again, by the way, rock bottom is never rock bottom. It's just a new building block to build upon. But you have to build those new blocks and those new patterns and start noticing the pattern fulfill itself. So when you break a pattern and it starts to build and renew a new pattern, if you don't like the way it's coming, you break it again and redo it till it comes back the way it feels harmonious, or it feels like that is in alignment with the universe or with God or source or angel or your guardian angels, or until you feel like this feels right. The trust is there. You're going on the right path. But don't trust it too much, because then you become mindless and you become naive, and you got to always be this noticer and observer when you go to a family's house, to a restaurant, or any encounter. It sounds like a lot, but when you do it in the beginning, it becomes easy. It's like you do the work so much in the beginning that it's like natural. You just start. If you want to become a noticer, if you see all these podcasts and documentaries and you're like, oh, how do they do it? This is how you do it. I'm telling you how you do it. This is how you become the noticer. This is how you become the observer and the student of life. If you want that, you're welcome to have it. If you don't want that, then keep saying this is hard. Remember the guy from yesterday? He kept saying, oh, this is hard. And this is, I don't know how long. He kept repeating the same blocks. Right?
Right.
So you cannot do that. If you want the freedom, you can't be the freedom if you are your own block.
It's very true.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. Well, Malcolm, I want to say thank you on that. Because the next conversation you and I are going to have is going to be about acceptance. And you've already started to segue into that. And so I want to go ahead and stop you so that we can get into it, because surrendering and acceptance goes hand in hand together.
Yes.
So I can hear your wonderful daughter in the background watching TV or something. And, so I want you to go have fun with her. But thank you for the time this morning. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to talking to you again.
Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day.
You too.